August 2001, IGN and various newspapers reported that several new Ninja Turtles projects were in the works. These included a low-budget CGI animated film, a brand new Saturday morning cartoon, and a line of next-gen video games. Among these announcements was a Tmnt miniseries planned to air on the Hallmark channel. The miniseries was expected to be 4 hours long, split into 2-hour episodes, broadcast on different nights. Steve Barron, who directed the original 1990s Tmnt film, was set to return as director, alongside many members of the original movie's creative team. However, unlike the light-hearted tone of the earlier films, this project aimed for a much darker, grittier vibe, closer in spirit to the original comics. The plan was for the miniseries to air after the animated series, but before the CGI movie, placing its expected release date between May 2003 and May 2004. Production for Hallmark's Tmnt miniseries began all the way back in 2001 and continued up until sometime in 2003, thanks to artwork posted by Brendan McCarthy on his website and Twitter account. We know that artwork was being developed in 2001 and gave us a glimpse at perhaps the visual style and character designs of the project. Streetwise, that's the word Steve Barron used to describe this reinvention of the Tmnt, and you can clearly see that in the conceptual artwork developed by Brendan McCarthy. Hallmark's Tmnt miniseries was disconnected from any other project from the past, so the characters here are modern-day interpretations on what the Turtles would have been like, an approach that gives them a streetwise-like look to their designs. Raphael was illustrated to have a gangster-like appearance, adorned with a chain around his neck, a beanie on his head, which is sometimes a do-rag, and most unique of all, piercings on his face and a set of fresh tattoos. Personality-wise, he's the same old Raph we've come to know, but with a new urban hip-hop style and a toned body we've never seen before. He's even described to listen to rap music on a frequent basis, so one thing's for sure, we know who the cops will go after first. Michelangelo, like Raphael, is adorned in more modern clothing, but he embraces a more laid-back, chill, and tropical attire with a bead necklace, backwards cap, sunglasses, oversized surfer shorts, and sometimes a Hawaiian shirt. Leonardo and Donatello are shown to be much more traditional in terms of their looks, especially Leonardo, who's described as very superhero-like. Finally, there's Master Splinter, who looks very creepy, with a smaller and shriveled body and large black eyes. All the artwork here gives us a very general idea on what the filmmakers were going for, and the Turtles themselves not only have a very distinct aesthetic, but they also seem to be very emotive as well. It's hard to imagine how these would have been translated into a live-action miniseries, especially in the early 2000s, but as you'll see, there were very clear attempts to achieve these looks using the technologies of the time. This miniseries was looking to be fairly elaborate in terms of the complexity of the production. According to the initial news that announced this project, Hallmark's Tmnt was going to utilize CGI technologies to bring the project into the 21st century. In fact, this series was straying away from the full-on physical suits of the original films. Instead, they'd combine real-life actors with CGI turtles. What does this mean? Well, they were likely going in the same direction as the movie Where the Wild Things Are, where there were actors in suits, but the facial expressions and overall appearance of the creatures were enhanced using CGI, giving us a much more surreal and weird approach to the Ninja Turtles in a live-action setting. What's cool is that a lot of progress was made towards bringing these characters to life. Several sculpts and maquettes were made for characters in the miniseries, including Shredder, the Ninja Turtles, and even Master Splinter. In fact, a camera test of Splinter was filmed in London, as according to Peter Laird, he was shown a 5-minute proof-of-concept video. The video was of an actress in a Master Splinter costume. The actress was shown making different gestures, performing different actions like climbing, walking, and using different martial arts maneuvers. Laird states that this was very eerie and cool, and it absolutely blew the work done in the older films out of the water. We also have a pretty good idea on what the turtles themselves looked like in live action. These maquettes popped up on a UK prop website a few years ago, and as of right now, they serve as our only looks on what the TMNT would have looked like within the live action project. It seems Steve Barron was going for a much more realistic approach to the turtle designs, as Donatello and Leonardo in these images take on a much more realistic appearance. They do maintain the general design of the Ninja Turtles, but the skin has so much more detail than we've come to expect, especially when you compare them to the more smooth appearance of the 1990s film. It's worth noting that since this was a TV miniseries, it's unclear just how high quality these suits would have been if created. Hallmark's TMNT is not a sequel to a previous story. Instead, it's set in its own universe where the turtles had already been through several adventures. According to this piece of artwork, the miniseries would have borrowed from the whimsical tone of the Men in Black movies and the edginess of the Matrix films. The story would have involved the turtles who face a new foe who threatens their identities, what they stand for, and who they are as individuals. Are they truly the protectors of New York, or are they a part of a much more sinister existence? This story then would explore their hidden origins and what it really means to be a Ninja Turtle. In terms of the threat they'd face in this film, we see this clearly in the artwork, the Foot Clan. However, what's interesting is that it's heavily implied that the Turtles had dealt with them years ago, so their return is quite troubling. Even worse, Shredder is once again leading the group, but there's something strange about him. Yeah, he maintains the black armor, but he has a much more bulky body type, and he lacks the iconic claws we're used to. This is clearly not the Shredder we've known all this time. As we'd come to find out, this Shredder is actually a turtle. To be more exact, he's the fifth brother of the Ninja Turtles lost to time. One thing's for sure, this turtle is a lot more ruthless, cold, and calculating than the rest. However, somehow I don't feel that he's completely turned to darkness. In this artwork, Michelangelo engages in a fight with the Foot Clan, snowboarding through the roof of a train. Inside the train, we see the fifth turtle dining in silence. When I see this moment, I get the sense that this fifth turtle is someone who's isolated and lonely and seeks the same companionship the brothers have come to know all their lives. It's pretty unclear what the origins of the fifth turtle are, but the plot of the miniseries would have heavily explored it. There's one other major plot element we know about the project, and that involves the turtles somehow traveling to a new dimension known as the astral plane. Not much is known about this plot point, but we know that creatures such as the Shred Ant would have been present here, as Peter Laird described it as an astral plane avatar. We also know that the climax would have involved the turtles combining spiritually, likely for the final fight. Hallmark's TMNT miniseries sounds really interesting. Funny enough, I think a lot of the ideas, especially the more urban take on the turtles, were explored in the 2014 film. It's unclear why this miniseries never moved forward, but at least we still got the CGI Ninja Turtles movie in the end.